Hi, I'm Chris from Aspen.
And I'm Jeff. We're going to talk for a few minutes about the knives we use. Now, understandably, this video is going to be a hot button topic of contention among outdoorsmen. But please bear in mind this is just our opinion. We've lived out here for 4 years, and like most guys, we like knives, but we have to have our tools out here. And we've tried every kind of axe, hatchet, saw, big knife, little knife, every blade material, every blade profile, every tip profile, every grind and handle material. And what we ended up with might shock you a little bit because we're actually not that fancy. As we demonstrated in another video, the saw is the tool out here. Now remember that like your tools evolved in an area to deal with the wood that was around those people. Therefore, like your panwai and your machete, if it's used to cutting bamboo, is probably not going to work real well on maybe oak. And a saw will always outperform a knife or an axe or a hatchet when cutting through wood. End of story. So we have likewise come to specialize our tools for the area we're in. Here in the high country of the Rockies, we only have softwoods. We have about 9 kinds of pine, take your pick, willow, only shrub willow, shrub birch, and aspen. These are all very soft woods. That said, we don't really use axes and hatchets. The winters here aren't exceptionally bad, whereas if I was farther north, perhaps in boreal forest, Canada, I might not bring the saw because it'll get brittle in the winter, and I might bring an axe or a hatchet. That said, this is what we bring with us. These are the knives we've come to use. You probably saw this one with me on television. What an incredible tool. You know, as Chris said once, the Nepalese have invented the all-in-wonder kitchen combat farming camp knife, all in one. Yeah, it's the absolute workhorse. What an elegant design. You know, as far as our, my big blades go, Chris uses his kukri a little bit more than me, but I use my saw and my little knife. I use this to clean branches off of trees when we're about to set the teepee up, or mostly split some wood.
Yeah, the real magic in this blade design is, well, one of its features is this, how it's bent or curved forward here, and what that does is give it a weight forward design, and that's exactly where you want the weight of the blade in a knife that you're going to use for chores like big chopping, things of that nature. You could also use this for smaller work as well if you get down here in this section of the blade. Most of your chopping is going to happen up in this part.
Yeah, remember that a big knife can do the work of a little knife and a big knife, but a little knife can only do the work of a little knife. That said, we do carry little knives, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Now, I had a couple very nice knives. I had one that was longer than this one in my early day, and I'll tell you what, it wasn't half the chopper this thing is. You know, weight is part of the magic of a big chopper, but that blade angle is the rest of the magic. You know, Chris had a really fancy kukri a few years back, and that didn't work out all that well for him.
Yeah, it cost probably 5 times as much as this one, and destroyed it partly because it was my big chopper and things I was doing with it, but it had the full flat grind. This one has the convex grind, and I'm trying to demonstrate here as I'm batoning through this piece of wood that it's not the blade pushing through the wood, because that creates a lot of friction and puts a lot of stress, extra damage on the blade. I don't know if the camera could pick this up, but if you get the idea, the convex blade, after the blade enters the wood, it's going to widen and spread apart. And now, no longer the actual blade is cutting through the wood, but you're pushing through and splitting it.
Yeah, no one argues with the fact an axe is for splitting wood. So if we think about what kind of grind an axe has, it has a convex grind on it. And the axe is not exactly a new design. The full flat grind, when trying to baton through wood, it just grabs. It's got so much surface area that, you know, it is actually trying to cut through the wood where this is not. Now, that said, I said that my little knife and my saw is what I use most, and here's my little knife, and it has a full flat grind on it. Full flat grind is specialized to some tasks. Cleaning an animal and whittling. You can get in much closer to your wood and take a much thinner slice of wood off, and you can get into that animal and you can cut in a much tighter area with a full flat grind than you can with a convex grind. I hear outdoorsmen and people saying, well, this grind is better than this grind. It's not that kind of a situation. It's specialized to the use of the blade. This knife, it's been a very good knife for me. I've had it for years. I'm going to replace it soon. I never beat on it real hard. I just used it like a knife should be used. I do keep this thing razor sharp though, like a little knife should. Which brings us back to this knife. Is for a big heavy work knife, how sharp does it need to be? Well, it doesn't need to be able to shave your arm off. That is an absolute waste of time, because had Chris had a hair shaving edge on that thing, when he actually used it, he would have lost his hair shaving edge on the first time. That said, we keep them sharp, but we keep them about as sharp as you would an axe, because it's got a high angle on the edge of the blade for splitting. So, with your big knife, it would be senseless to sharpen it up like a razor, even if it's possible, because the first time you drive it into something, you lose that edge.
And of course, you always want to have a sharpener with you to maintain the blade when you're out in the field. And also, if you want to keep it protected, there's all sorts of oils out there to use. But one little field trick when it comes to knives that I've actually learned from the Nepalese and their kukris, something I haven't heard before, maybe you have, but they would use their earwax out of the ear. They'd scrape and put on the blades as oil to treat it and preserve it while out in the field.
Mm-hmm. My dad taught me just to rub my nose and wipe the oil on the blade. And you see, our blades are pretty stained up, but they're not rusted. Now tonight by the fire, what we'll do is we'll take some of the lye out of the fire and spread it on the knife and make a paste out of it. And then I'll take the burning end of a stick or some kind of stick, and I'll grind that into my blade. And between the lye and the friction from the end of that stick, it'll brush all those stains right off. This knife has been all over the country with me, worked very well. It's got a buffalo horn handle. It's not expensive. It's not fancy. And I will break it just like I broke my 1095 high carbon steel Golok, just like I broke a couple other brand name knives, because they just wear out. We use our knives daily, if not hourly, out here. And everything's just in a state of entropy, and that's all there is to it. So, a big knife that is as sharp as a big knife needs to be, that we use like a hatchet, a very nice saw, most importantly, and a little knife with a flat grind on it to get into our little projects and do what we're trying to do. This year I want to add a hook knife to that list of things. But that is the selection of tools we bring with us. We don't really have shovels. We don't have axes and hatchets. We tried all that stuff and found that it was just more weight to carry around. We have plenty of stuff to carry in our packs when we're out here for weeks or months on end. So, we hope you found this video informative. We hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to get a hold of us. Till next time.